thank you so much for coming to support and attend our 18th annual general meeting and of course our CPD event today. It's great for having you so well supported. Thank you, Karen, for the housekeeping and the general introduction. And I want to say now, thanks to Craig, Julie, Karen, and the board members who helped to organise today. As Karen mentioned, Craig has been waiting for... Oh, here we go.
Right on cue.
Just to move on quickly, just to thank you again and so welcome. Our first speaker, Louise Crockart, will be talking about making connections with Arvigo therapy. For the past 2 decades, Louise has been supporting her clients in all aspects of their health and well-being through various forms of massage treatment. 15 years ago, Arvigo therapy made a huge impact on her own path, spurring Louise on to train in and eventually become a teacher of this transformative healing modality. Louise works from home in leafy Twickenham, southwest London, and travels extensively teaching Arvigo therapy to clients and therapists. Louise.
Thank you, Gabriel. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, hello. Yes, thank you for inviting me about my beloved Arvigo therapy. It did totally transform how I was at the time when I was bleeding. I'm now menstruating, so hence I'm menopausal. Yeah, attempting on menopausal. Fan here, and I haven't got any shoes on, so there's a menopausal woman for you in her prime. So, I invite you all to place your hands over your pelvis, just above your pubic bone. So just find yourself a comfortable place for a couple of seconds, just to really connect with what's happening in your pelvis right now. So disconnect with the outside world and really travel inside. Feel the warmth of your hands melting through your clothes into your skin. Become aware of how your digestion was. Have you had breakfast? Was it nice? Have you not had breakfast? Are you hungry? Have you had a wee? How do your bowels feel? Those kind of internal questions that you ask yourself. And then when you feel ready, you can open your eyes and come back into the room, come back into that external stimulus. And these are the questions which I often ask my clients, because we tend to live quite a disconnected life with our bodies. Our internal and our external environments tend to be at odds with each other. Arvigo therapy is a wonderful middle ground. It's a great connection. It's a great avenue, a bridge to connect every single day with what's going on with me right now, and actually where am I, and where do I see myself stepping forward into wherever I find myself. There seems to be a lot of disconnection in our modern society between our head and our bodies. We're all living in our heads. We're living at 1,000 miles an hour. Emails, social media, everything's taking us away. And coming back into that total connection is when we begin to thrive rather than just survive. So the simple act of rubbing your belly every single day really begins to switch yourself on into that thriving rather than that surviving mode. And indeed, every indigenous culture around the world knows this as a truth. There are, whether it's Asia, whether it's Africa, whether it's the Americas, everybody believes that nothing is disconnected. We've all got that mind-body spiritual connection, of which the European, the Western aspect is slowly catching on. I think we're coming back into that idea and that understanding how important that is. But this is a really nice stepping forward as to how you get into that. So Arvigo therapy is based on the pillars, these are the three main pillars of Arvigo therapy. They're the main influencers that have helped create Arvigo therapy for what it is today. You've got Rosita Arvigo, that's her surname, as which she's given this name to her therapy, in the middle. You've got Donalihio Panti, who's the gentleman to the left and to the middle. And then you've got Miss Miss Hortense Robinson on the right-hand side. And these are the Maya, and they come from Central America. It's a population that for millennia have encompassed Mexico, eastern Mexico, mainly the Yucatan area, Belize, Honduras, Belize, Honduras, and
Salvador.
sorry?
Salvador.
Thank you very much. Perfect. So Belize used to be known as British Honduras until it got its independence in the early 80s. And in that is when Rosita Arvigo found herself in Belize practicing as a herbalist and a naturopath. Now, naturopathy is an offshoot of osteopathy, and they don't believe in any adjustments and any clicking. It's all related to fascia and the gentle manipulation of the body working itself rather than physically cracking. So she's your classic hippie. In the 1960s, she was in the Haight-Ashbury, part of the Black Bear commune that was run by the Grateful Dead at that time. And she slowly wandered down to Mexico. Effectively, as she admits, she was with a load of draft dodgers in the 60s, because she said, in a year's time, most of us will be dead if we hang around here. So they hightailed it to Mexico. And that's when she really found her calling. She was working with the Maya midwives in the Sierra Nevadas in northern Mexico at the time, and really seeing how these midwives were delivering their babies, how they were dealing with postpartum issues, and just thinking, I've got to learn this is amazing, especially when she was coming from America at that time in the 60s, where a lot of women were put under general anaesthetic to have babies. They were totally away from the whole experience. So this really visceral connection she was wanting to make to the earth, to the body, to the spirituality of things, totally came with her when she came to Belize, and she discovered the Maya way of life, which just was beautiful. And she met Donalihio Panti. Now this is one of his sayings here, that the uterus is the woman's core. If it's out of balance, her whole life is out of balance, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And quite frankly, with all I speak from one uterus to all the other uteruses that are sitting here, and indeed for men, for prostates, I don't have one, but a prostate is the equivalent of a uterus in the man. If that is not functioning as well as it could be, we all know, we all feel a bit off kilter, and that doesn't matter how it's affecting us, but if it's in a menstrual cycle, if it's our fertility, if it's our excretory organs, it's just, we're not feeling too good. So it's that coming back into that core, which Arvigo therapy specifically is all about. It's about looking and addressing uteri and prostates and making them function as best they can. Then true healing and thriving begins. And the lady on the, where am I? That side, the left-hand side, she's a Maya midwife. She first delivered her first baby when she was 14, and she went on carrying on. I think she died when she was in her early 90s, and 2 years prior to her death, she was already assisting births. So thousands, literally thousands of children she had helped enter this world. She was called the keeper of 1,000,000 secrets. And Rosita learnt directly with her at learning all of these ancient ways, learning how the Maya really support fertility, menstruation, and the 3 phases of womanhood, which is the maiden, the mother, and the crone. And I like to really encourage this word crone back into our modern society. I know Jo is going to be talking.
Yeah, don't steal my thunder.
Oh, don't get me onto menopause. I don't know. But yes, really embodying, you know, the time when you're coming into your power, effectively. So, next one, thank you. And here's Rosita Arvigo with her hands on one of her thousands of abdomens that she has felt over the 40 years that she's been doing this. And here she is teaching some Maya midwives in Guatemala her technique. Now, she has been learning directly from Rosita Arvigo and on Miss Hortense. So her techniques, the actual techniques that are done within the body, have not been changed. They are from the Maya traditions, and she's brought her Western understanding of, so why does this movement, why are they doing this movement, why are babies coming easier when I'm doing this specific movement on the back or on the abdomen. It was her Western understanding of fascia and ligaments as to why we now can categorically say that you do this movement and it's going to release your SI joint or something like that. So she believes the female's pelvis is the powerhouse, and actually I would do that across the board. Every human's pelvis is their powerhouse. It's our seat of energy, it's our seat of connection, it's our seat of tribal connection. On a very basic level, we need to act as tribes. We need to act as our community. We need to have that connection one more time. In this fast, disenfranchised and disconnected society that we're living in now, this is just a lovely way of coming back into your seat of power and creativity. So she spent 40 years supporting her community within the Belizean rainforest on the Guatemalan border, and she had full agreement and conversations with Don Eligio and Miss Hortense, because I think in this day and age appropriation is one of the words which a lot of people are saying, who's a Western white woman got to say, coming out there and touting this Maya understanding. And the folk healing tradition, and it was with full knowledge within that community that she was doing this, and with their approval. So, and there is also a tithing back as well, so every training that is happening here, there is a tithe that goes back to the community, and there's many indigenous projects which are being funded, so there's a real connection here. It's not a disconnected, it's totally separate therapy, very much connected with that area. So let's get on to the nitty-gritty about the stimulation. Effectively, we know we're working in a very evidence-based world these days. We can't come across and just come out with any old saying or any old, statement of fact. We have to have some form of fact to medical-based research to back us up. Arvigo therapy, because this is based on folk traditional healing, there isn't that much clinical evidence that we can say, apart from this has been going on for thousands of years, and that babies are born very successfully when this approach is being done. So it's empirical knowledge that we're knowing. But we do know, and I can categorically say, because all of us here are massage therapists, am I right in that? Massage therapy. And there are evidence-based research to say massage is good for stimulating the circulation. So that I can categorically say. We stimulate the 5 systems of flow. Okay. So it's that connective tissue. I know that Emma Charlton's going to be talking about how that fascia is connected and how it's working around and influencing all aspects of our body and our internal organs. So we are going to be working, when we're working on the belly and we're working on the back and the diaphragm, we are connecting with that fascia. Okay. We're softening scar tissue. Fascia, connection, it's all one and the same, it's all just being layered on top of each other in different ways and fibres. So we're softening scar tissue. We're helping digestion. We're physically rubbing the belly. Fertility is a great support. I have probably 70% of my clients relate to fertility with fertility challenges, pregnancy and postpartum. Excretion. We all know that we feel better after a good poo. And quite frankly, massaging the belly, you poo brilliantly. I don't know what to say about that. And also, now, when I first started 20 years ago, I was trained at the Tisserand Institute. Massaging bellies sort of came as a bit of a, ooh, don't quite know what you're going to get when you rub people's bellies. They hold so many emotions. This solar plexus area, this area over our diaphragm is so highly charged for a lot of people. And sometimes all I have to do is I will just be placing my hands on the belly with intention and the tears will flow. So it's such a beautiful release. It's such a wonderful space holder to be able to just hold and be with that person. You don't have to know the answers. In fact, it's better if you don't know the answers because you're travelling with them shoulder to shoulder and helping them on that journey. Wherever that journey is going to take them, you are just being present and holding. And it's such an honour to be able to be opened up and to be allowed to be in that person's abdominal area, that person's area of vulnerability too. So the next few slides, it's not going to be anatomy course, so don't switch off here. The next few slides is just physically telling you the specifics about when we're massaging the belly, what it's doing and why it's doing that. So we see the phrenic and the vagus nerves here. Now, you can see when we are working over the diaphragm, okay, this parachute-shaped organ which is sitting underneath our ribs. Here you can see the top aspect of it and how it's physically connected to the heart. You know, it's absolutely all connected within this sac here. So however tight our diaphragm is, it's going to be affected how our hearts are going. So by softening and working over our top part of our abdomen we're allowing that heart space to come. We're allowing the nerves, and you can see the phrenic and the nerve innervation from the neck coming down and how it's all intertwined and interwoven around the outside of the heart and then into and through the diaphragm. So this is the inferior aspect, and we're looking up now towards the head. So the phrenic nerve here is completely popping through the fibres of the diaphragm itself. Now, how do we breathe when we're stressed? What do we think is happening with the diaphragm at that point? Not a whole lot. It's sort of doing this, isn't it? And we think that a really good functioning diaphragm is all coming down and it's coming up. As it's doing that, it's encouraging the digestive organs to squish too. So it's this whole aspect within our body. We're getting the oxygen in, we're getting the digestion flowing through. But when we're stressed and we're tight, not only is the diaphragm really static, it's also squishing the apertures that come through the diaphragm. So you've got your aorta, so this is the main hole where all the blood from the heart pops through. And you can tell how important it is because it's right towards the back of the body. It's protected by everything else here. So it's right sitting on the anterior aspect of the spine. You've then got your vena cava, so all of that returning deoxygenating blood is coming back through that diaphragm in another little os, another little circle here. You can see how those fibres of the diaphragm are all intertwined, and if they're tight, then they're going to be squishing those holes. And then you've got the esophagus, so your main blood, so your food coming through into your stomach. And it's going to be sitting here, and that's where your esophagus is coming all the way down, and then your stomach sits underneath here. That's when you're feeling a bit tight, and you haven't really got that space to eat, or you've got butterflies in your stomach, and you just don't have any appetite left. That's what's happening there. Everything is squishing down. Likewise, the phrenic nerve is going to be restricted too. That nerve impulses is not going to be working quite as well as it can be. The vagus nerve, and that is connected to all aspects of our organs, as it's the vagrant nerve, it's the wandering nerve, it's the nerve of consciousness. It's got its fingers in every single function of our body. And if it's going to be restricted via the diaphragm, then how can the lower part of our body be functioning as well as it could be? I think I've said enough there. You can see how the diaphragm here is on that last slide as well. The only actual connection that the physical to our bones connection that this diaphragm has is towards the back on the spine here, the thoracic spine. Everything else is fascial connection to the ribs and the surrounding tissues. It has to, because it's this moving dynamic organ. It's only anchored at our spine. So if we've got that tight diaphragm, we're going to get some restriction in our spine as well. And this tends to be that place where we're bending forward and we get that around our bra strap area, it's that real tension and pain. So doing some really good back massage at that point is going to be helping flow and open up that diaphragm. And the psoas diaphragm connection. This is I could do a whole lecture on this. It's just beautiful. Our psoas, the psoas is a muscle which is a proprioceptive muscle. It's like a tongue. It reacts to what's happening around us. It's one of the oldest muscles within our body, which is hardwired into our limbic brain. So when we were on all fours, it was the muscle that pushed our back legs to run away from threat. And when we have now migrated into this upright position, we misuse it as a core stabilizer. When our abdominal muscles aren't as strong as they could be, our psoas kicks in, because that's what it does. It's our surviving muscle. So what needs to be, just like a tongue, for all you meat eaters out there, it's the fillet steak of a cow. So you know what a fillet steak feels like and looks like. It's different from all of the other cuts of meat. So a psoas muscle needs to be that juicy, blood-rich muscle, and a lot of the time it's a dry, desiccated old muscle that's just doing its best to hold us upright. It's connected through our limbic brain on a nerve supply directly to our stress levels. So if we're living and thriving on stress and adrenaline, that psoas muscle is just kicking in, going, okay, where's the threat? I'm ready to go. We can run at any time. But after 45 years, it's sort of like, okay, I'm getting there. It's tired. So just being able to do that belly massage, that softening over that diaphragm, that solar plexus, is a really good in at helping psoas issues, groin, inguinal area issues, which is when that psoas muscle becomes really tight, then often we have inguinal issues there. So again, working around the belly in a soft, loving way, rather than a lot of physios will be going in with their elbows and their thumbs and they're doing trigger point work, and it's painful, but it sort of works for maybe a day, and then the next day you're back to square one again. This is a lot gentler, a lot more effective working with the body. And then, my little piece de resistance is the suspensory ovarian ligament is wrapped through the psoas muscle. Could we go back to the last slide? So the suspensory ovarian ligament does exactly that. It suspends the ovaries in position. And it is intertwined and intertwangled all the way through the psoas. And the blood supply to this organ comes from here. It bifurcates, it comes off of the aorta right up to the top here. And the same with testes. The testicular artery comes all the way up here. And that's the body illustrating to you how important it is to get blood supply directly down to those ovaries, directly down to those testes. It's not hanging around until it gets to here, which all manner of things could be affecting the blood supply down there. It's like, no, the minute it comes from the heart, we've got to get it down to those organs. They're a long way down, and they need their own special A road, their toll road to go down to get there. And they're intertwined within that psoas muscle. So you can see there's a whole big story that's going on there through tension, through digestive, long-term constipation, all those things which can be affecting the psoas muscle and the digestion and how that's flowing. Again, I'm going to be sounding like a broken record. Arvigo therapy, self-care, belly massage helps with that. Thank you. Okay, next one. I love this illustration. It's just, I just feel like you want to squish things. I wish we all looked like that on the inside. There's only 30% of people who actually look like an anatomy book. We'll find that our organs are all over the place. We're all as individual on the inside as we are on the out. But just massaging your belly is going to be helping the transverse colon. It's going to be helping the descending colon, the sigmoid colon. It's going to be helping the lymphatic flow. This is a female, so this is the bladder and the uterus here. The uterus is here. It's going to be helping bladder and uterine functions, and for men it would be their prostate too. So you can see doing nice belly massage, it's helping all those tubes flow nicely. So the nitty-gritty of the pelvic organs, I have to say that when I first started really learning about the uterus, it was just like, oh my God, I never knew it actually sat like that in the pelvis. We all see the angel on the, which is the image of her in the dissecting, on the dissecting lab with her yellow wings, which is the broad ligament. But actually, in reality, excuse me, I'm putting myself down here. In reality, she's in this position. So the bladder is here, the bowel is here. These are the fimbriae, so the ovaries are actually within here. I actually thought the ovaries were actually stuck in. You know, I had no idea that they were there. And it's in this position here. And so she's this movable, dynamic organ that swells with menstruation and pregnancy and then comes back down post-menstruation. So it's all supposed to be this dynamic, moving kind of space. And you can see that there's a space between the uterus and the wall of the rectum and the colon, and also the bladder, because these two are expanding, contracting organs. So if there's endometriosis and there's maybe sea-birth scars, or there's some form of abdominal surgery, those organs are possibly going to be sticky, they're going to be connected, there's going to be scar tissue, maybe adhesions there. And so what was this beautiful dynamic organ that was swelling and moving, she's a bit like a yogic dance, and when you're doing your self-care, we're encouraging her to do this. She's a bit stuck. And then when she's stuck, the circulation doesn't flow. So those 5 systems of flow, the arterial, the venous, the nerves, the energetic, and the last one, the lymphatic. That's on the system. All of those 5 systems of flow are working and moving, and we come into our power when we're massaging our abdomens here. Okay, thank you. When you come for an abdominal treatment, for an Arvigo treatment, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
There's back work as well. You'll learn how to do your self-care, and this is the fundamental difference between coming for a treatment with somebody to get something done to you and then you go home, and coming to an Arvigo therapy treatment where you get taught how to do your self-care. You're given a tool, you're given an empowerment, you're given, actually, it's an educational session. The first session is between 2 and 2.5 hours. It's a big investment in time and money, effort, emotions. Boy, there's a lot of emotions. There's always a box of tissues in my consultancy room. But it's all about education. It's about finding what is that nugget within your own special journey that's going to help you to help yourself. So you get taught how to do a self-care massage, which you do on yourself, and you obviously do it on your belly. The whole treatment involves your back as well, because nothing is in isolation. I've already talked about the thoracic spine. You need to soften up to soften out your your diaphragm. Also the QLs around here, so you can see, it's a bit low actually, this is the sacrum, but the QLs, the quadratus lumborum muscles around the lumbar spine are going to be affecting how the psoas works and how everything is fed within that pelvis. And then you've got the sacral nerves, and you can see how it's effectively, completely innervating the pelvic floor. It's innervating the uterus, all of the creative organs. And for men, it's going to be helping erectile dysfunction as well. I think there should be a next one. Yeah. And that's the mnemonic, is S234, keeps the P's off the floor, poo, pee and penis. So if you can start stimulating the sacrum, then for erectile dysfunction, for enlarged prostates, and this is where am I going to morph into the masculine aspect of the talk, and God love us, we all need to get this work to men, is that it's really going to be helping them with unexplained pelvic problems, with benign hyperplasia. So when the prostate is swelling, it's not cancerous, it's just swollen due to congestion generally. It's really going to be helping how their pelvic floor, I say them because I'm not a woman, so for the men, how important this work is, helping varicose veins and swollen legs and restless legs, those kind of things. It's going to be helping, stimulating those nerves, cutting down on that inflammation. The next slide is a great shot I got from, it's a graphic from fasterpregnancy.com. I just love him, he makes me smile. They're just some really interesting factoids. I hate that word when I've just said it. Little factoids about men and their fertility and just generally the man, a vital man. These you should have all received my presentation, so you've got this to reference. But generally men don't talk about their feelings, and I am doing a vast generalisation here, I do believe. That we have men in this room, you are going to be the extraordinary rather than your rugby-loving guys that I see around Twickenham, is this work, if we can begin to reach out to the men so that they can begin to connect with their core centre as well, is going to be just beautiful, because they are 50% of a lot of the issues that we're seeing. So when I'm seeing my partners, my clients, I try and get their partners to come in or at least have that conversation with them too, because massaging their abdomens is going to help them connect. In a lot of the times they've learned to disconnect. So for when teenagers are walking down the road, they're going to first probably twig that, oh, that woman's just walked away from me, she sees me as a threat. It's those kinds of things like, okay, I'm not perceived as that sweet little 4-year-old that I used to be. So it's learning to talk and open up that conversation of connectivity between their own centres and embodying them in a really healing kind of way, which a lot of the time they've totally disconnected. So really rounding off, making connections. This Arvigo therapy has helped me find my tribe. I came into this work through my own menstrual problems. I had irregular menstrual cycles, and Arvigo was the only thing that gave me back a form of regular cycle. Through that, I have found my community, and there are approximately 600 therapists around the world, and you knock on anyone's door and they will open their arms. You've got a bed in every country effectively around the world. The workshops which I hold and my clients, my colleagues hold around the world and throughout Britain are totally interactive. I think you've probably got a gauge of me as I'm not somebody who likes writing a lot. I'm very much a practical, kinesthetic kind of teacher, so I need to, let's dress up in a uterus costume. Why wouldn't you? How do we know what a uterus feels like? It's just, so this was something which I devised as a way of, we talk about uterine ligaments, there are 14 of them, 7 on each side. It's just like, well, what does that ligament do? How does it feel? So actually, you getting into a suit and having a ribbon putting you one side with all of your other community around you, holding you in place, once they're all in that vibrant, heart-thriving state, you can actually relax into that weird position, and then somebody lets go, and then you sink, and then we discuss about, okay, so what do you think might be the knock-on effect of that one going like that? So it's all about making connections, both on a physical and a broader level as well. We teach self-care. I can't say much more than that. Once you're looking after yourself, you learn to be able to be much more emboldened with your own healing path. We teach herbal steams and bathing. Now I know that when I had that conversation with Karen, I just said I left something hanging about penis soaks, and I think I might just throw that in just to grab everyone's attention. It might be disappearing off now. Is that I know vaginal steaming has been very hot in the press at the moment. I think it's a misnomer actually. You don't steam your vagina. Our vaginas are not holes which are just gaping around, waiting for something to go in it. They're closed up. It's a perineum steam. We're getting heat to the perineum so that the lovely oxygenated blood can get to that area which is often very ischemic. And the same for men. Now they don't have uteri, so one of the things is that you can soak a penis, and that does much the same thing. It helps the blood supply. So people who have erectile issues, is that you can, obviously, we're not going to be going really, really hot temperatures here, but those herbs, but just by soaking anything, it's a bit like putting your feet in a basket and a bucket of water. The same thing happens there. And you get taught about the fundamental aspect of looking after a man's pelvic floor as much as a female pelvic floor. Castor oil packs. I am evangelical about castor oil. If you don't know about it, you can find it all on Google. Just Google castor oil and healing and how to do a pack, because quite frankly, it's changed so many client experiences, and actually when anything's wrong, I generally put castor oil on it. If it doesn't get better within 24 hours, it's a miracle, quite frankly. It seems to be, it's called the palm of Christ. It's a miraculous oil, and this is one of the things which you would receive in an Arvigo treatment, is that you'll get a castor oil pack. And lastly, come to one of my workshops. Yeah, you can do all the rest of it. I think there should be 2 or 3. So arvigotherapy.com if you're interested in learning about more. And the dates, we've got, is it really? Oh, no, that one there. There you go. So we've got an next self-care. If you are interested, it's a 2.5 day workshop in Richmond. Come along, learn how to look after yourself, because that's really the first stage of your journey. Be the healing that you want to give others. To vastly paraphrase Gandhi, be the healing that you want to see in the world. So learn about how to look after yourself, and then you can really embody that and then help your clients, because you've walked that path, you've walked the healer's path. And yeah, come along and contact me if you want any further information. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
That was amazing. was just amazing. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes, it was amazing. Thank you very much.
I was just going to ask,
Once again, thank you. Oh, is
I
there
was
going
going
to
to ask
be
you, are your workshops, are they open to men and women?
Absolutely, they're open to anyone with an abdomen. Absolutely, anyone,
So
yeah.
self-care, you could suggest it for a client.
Absolutely. So self-care specifically are set up for absolutely anyone. It's the first stage of your training, and if you want to then go on to become a therapist, you go on to the professional care. There is another avenue as well. If you are a therapist who just knows that they want to take this into their own clients, then there's an anterior and posterior training. You don't have to do the self-care. So the professional training is on the 20th of November. So basically there's two avenues. If you want to do that, this course, which is self-care for just yourself, and then decide that you want to go on to your own, to work with your own clients, then you work on these. And these are the two UK classes which are coming up soon. And then next year, if you know that you just want to do this for your, A, you want to find out for yourself, and B, you know you want to go straight to your clients, next year there's an anterior and a posterior training. It's exactly the same information, but it's just been hived off differently. It's 2 4-day trainings. The first day you learn how to do the anterior aspect, which includes your self-care and how to do it on your clients. And then the second 4 days is how to work on your posterior.
How effective is this for ladies who've had hysterectomies and gentlemen who've had prostatectomy?
So the question was, how effective is this for hysterectomies and prostatectomies? Absolutely, really effective. Because a lot of the times is that hole, the essence of that organ is still there. And also, what's the emotional aspect that's going around there? There's scar tissue that can be addressed. There's numbness and sensitivity, there's grief, there's maybe some joy that's happened because that painful organ's disappeared. But yeah, absolutely, thank you, that's a great question. You don't have to have that organ still present to still receive the healing that you need.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We just have a short break, and our next talk will be at 11.